Stop scrolling. What you're about to hear, they never wanted you to know. There's a reason your spirit led you here tonight. There's a reason the noise around you just stopped. This isn't chance. This isn't the algorithm. This is divine interruption. And if you can feel your chest tightening right now, if something deep inside is stirring, that's because heaven is leaning in. They told you that you were ordinary. They convinced you that your struggles meant you were forgotten. But what if everything they told you about your worth was a lie? For the past 72 hours, something has been happening in the spiritual realm. Angels have been moving. Ancient scrolls have been opened. And your name, yes, your name, has been spoken in the courts of heaven, not whispered, spoken. But here's what they don't want you to know. There were forces that tried to stop this message from reaching you. Dark principalities that have been tracking your bloodline for decades, watching, waiting, hoping you would never discover what you truly carry. They failed. You're here. You're listening. And the very fact that these words are penetrating your soul right now is proof that their plans have been shattered. What if I told you that every attack you've survived, every door that slammed shut, every moment you felt invisible, was never punishment? What if it was preparation? What if you've been hidden, not because you were worthless, but because what's inside you is so dangerous to darkness that hell itself has been trying to keep you asleep? Tonight, that changes. You have 24 hours, not 25, not when you're ready. 24 hours before something shifts in the spiritual atmosphere that cannot be undone. God's patience is infinite, but His timing is precise. And thank you to every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and plant that seed of faith. But chosen one, what happened in heaven 72 hours ago when your name was called, what the enemy tried to prevent, and what's about to be released over your life in the next 24 hours, made the darkness tremble. Don't you dare close this video. The universe just held its breath. You felt it, didn't you? That strange moment when everything around you went still. When the noise outside your window seemed to fade into nothing. When your phone stopped buzzing with meaningless notifications. When time itself seemed to slow down, like someone had pressed pause on the entire world just to get your attention. That wasn't coincidence, chosen one. That was heaven. You see, there are moments in the spiritual realm when all of creation stops what it's doing. When angels cease their singing, when the 24 elders pause in their worship, when even the wind holds its breath. These moments are rare, sacred, terrifying in their holiness. And tonight, it happened for you. You didn't stumble onto this message by accident. You weren't led here by some random algorithm or a late-night scroll through meaningless content. No, beloved, the entire spiritual atmosphere around your life has been recalibrated. The very air you're breathing has been charged with divine electricity, because what's about to unfold over the next 24 hours will not repeat itself. This is not motivation you're hearing. This is not inspiration designed to make you feel good for a moment and then fade into memory. This is a summons, a divine confrontation, a holy interruption that demands your full attention, your complete surrender, your immediate response. Heaven doesn't press pause for entertainment. Heaven doesn't stop time for small talk. When the creator of the universe decides to freeze every distraction around you, it's because what he's about to reveal cannot compete with the noise. It must have silence. It must have your undivided heart. You've been walking through life feeling invisible, haven't you? Watching others get promoted while you got overlooked. Seeing doors open for people who seemed less qualified, less faithful, less deserving. You've whispered prayers in the dark, wondering if God even remembers your name. You've cried tears that no one saw, carried burdens that no one understood. But here's what you didn't know. Every moment you felt forgotten was actually a moment you were being prepared. Every door that closed in your face was heaven protecting you from a lesser destiny. Every person who walked away from you was God removing distractions from your path. You see, when heaven has a plan for someone, a real plan, an eternal plan, a plan that will shake nations and shift bloodlines, that person has to be refined in ways others will never understand. They have to be tested in fires others will never even see. They have to walk through valleys so dark, so lonely, so brutal, that only divine strength can sustain them. That's been your story, hasn't it? The inexplicable hardships, the attacks that came out of nowhere, the spiritual warfare that intensified every time you tried to get closer to God. The enemy saw your potential before you did. He recognized the threat you would become. So he launched everything he had at you, hoping to destroy you before you discovered who you really are. He failed. You're still here, still breathing, still believing, still fighting. And tonight, the reason for all of it is about to be revealed. When heaven presses pause, it's because time itself has become the enemy of God's perfect will. It's because delay has become dangerous. It's because what needs to happen next cannot wait for your convenience, your comfort, or your confidence. It can only wait for your obedience. You've been in a waiting room, chosen one, a divine holding pattern, not because God forgot about you, but because the timing wasn't right. The stage wasn't set. The enemy wasn't positioned for his defeat. But something shifted 72 hours ago. Something changed in the courts of heaven. Your case was called. Your name was spoken. Your moment was declared. And now, time has stopped so you can step into it. This is why your spirit has been restless lately. Why sleep has become elusive. Why you felt an inexplicable urgency, a divine pressure building in your chest. That's not anxiety, beloved. That's anticipation. That's heaven's way of preparing you for acceleration. You see, there are some blessings that can only be received in motion. Some promises that can only be activated through action. Some destinies that can only be entered through a door marked now. And that door has been opened. The invitation has been extended. The red carpet of grace has been rolled out. But here's the thing about divine timing. It's precise. It's not early, and it's not late. It's exact. And when God says now, He doesn't mean when you're ready. That means now. The pause you're experiencing isn't just around you, it's within you. Something deep in your spirit knows this moment is different. Something ancient in your soul recognizes the sound of destiny knocking. You can try to ignore it. You can try to postpone it. You can try to explain it away. But you can't escape it, because heaven has pressed pause for you. Not for the crowd, not for the masses, not for those who are content with ordinary lives and comfortable Christianity. For you, the one who has carried more than most, the one who has endured what would have broken others, the one who has remained faithful when faithfulness felt like foolishness. Heaven paused history for your decision. Don't insult that grace with hesitation. The clock isn't just ticking toward tomorrow, chosen one. It's counting down to your defining moment. And when this pause ends, when time resumes its relentless march forward, you'll either be walking in the fullness of your calling or carrying the weight of what could have been. The choice is yours, but the moment is now, and heaven is watching. The courtroom of heaven has been in session, and you, chosen one, you didn't even know you were on trial. While you were wrestling with doubt in the midnight hours, while you were questioning if God had forgotten your name, while you were wondering if your prayers were bouncing off the ceiling, the eternal court was deliberating. Angels were presenting evidence. The accuser was building his case. And the judge of all creation was listening to every word. But here's what hell didn't count on. Your silence wasn't surrender. Your delay wasn't defeat. Your waiting wasn't weakness. It was wisdom being forged in fire. They thought the verdict would go against you. They thought your hesitation was proof of your unworthiness. They thought the delay was divine displeasure. But when the gavel fell, when the decision was announced across the spiritual realm, when the scroll was unrolled and your name was read aloud, the accuser's mouth snapped shut. Your delay is no longer a waiting season. It has now turned into disobedience. Feel the weight of those words. Let them settle in your chest like stones dropping into still water. This isn't condemnation. This is clarification. The season of mercy that allowed your hesitation, that covered your confusion, that made room for your wrestling, that season just shifted. The spiritual court has already issued the call. You see, there's a difference between waiting on God and making God wait on you. There's a difference between divine timing and divine impatience. And beloved, God's patience is holy, but it's not infinite. It moves in rhythm, like a heartbeat, like the tide, like the breath of the Almighty Himself. And the final beat has begun. You felt it, didn't you? That sudden heaviness in the atmosphere around your life. That strange urgency that makes your spirit restless even when your body wants to sleep. That's not anxiety. That's not your imagination. That's the sound of heaven's patience reaching its crescendo. The trumpet was not blown to wake you gently. Listen to me carefully, warrior. The sound that's been echoing in your spirit for weeks, months, maybe even years. That wasn't a lullaby. That wasn't a gentle nudge. That was a war horn, a battle cry, a call to arms that shook the foundations of both heaven and hell. They weren't trying to wake you from a nap, they were summoning you from a coma. You've been spiritually unconscious, moving through life on autopilot, going through the motions while your destiny screamed for your attention. But the trumpet that sounds now doesn't whisper, it roars. It doesn't suggest, it commands. It doesn't request your presence. It demands your response. It was blown to warn the earth that a bloodline breaker must rise. Now, do you understand what that means? Do you comprehend the weight of that calling? You're not just another believer. You're not just another prayer warrior. You're not just another person trying to make it through life with their faith intact. You are a bloodline breaker. Every curse that ran through your family line for generations stops with you. Every pattern of poverty, addiction, depression, defeat, it all comes to a screeching halt at your feet. Every demonic assignment that targeted your ancestors and thought it could continue its reign through your children, it meets its match in you. But bloodline breakers don't break chains by accident. They don't shatter generational curses by hoping really hard. They don't demolish spiritual strongholds with good intentions. They break them with obedience. Sharp, immediate, costly obedience. The kind of obedience that says yes before the question is fully asked. The kind of obedience that moves before the path is fully lit. The kind of obedience that trusts the voice of God more than the voice of fear. The trumpet won't sound twice. This is where most people stumble. They think divine opportunities are like city buses. If you miss one, another will come along in 15 minutes. They think God's calls are like phone calls. If you don't answer, He'll just try again later. But prophetic moments don't operate on human schedules. Divine windows don't stay open for human convenience. When heaven sounds the trumpet for a bloodline breaker to rise, it doesn't echo. It doesn't repeat. It sounds once, sharp and clear and final. And then it stops. What follows that silence isn't emptiness. It's not absence. It's not God walking away in frustration. The silence that follows will shake nations. Because when a chosen one misses their moment, when a bloodline breaker refuses to break, when a trumpet call goes unanswered, the ripple effects aren't just personal, they're generational, they're cosmic. Nations that were supposed to be touched by your obedience remain in darkness. Families that were supposed to be freed by your courage remain in bondage. Bloodlines that were supposed to be healed by your surrender remain broken. The silence isn't punishment. It's the sound of destiny rerouting itself. It's the sound of another plan being put into motion. It's the sound of someone else being called to carry what was meant for you. But you're still here. You're still listening. You're still breathing. Which means the trumpet is still echoing in your spirit. Which means the moment hasn't passed. Which means the verdict, though written, hasn't been executed. The silence is over. Chosen one, the court has spoken. The decision has been made. The trumpet has sounded. Now the only question that remains is this: will you rise to meet your verdict, or will you let it pass you by? The bloodline is waiting. The generations are watching. The trumpet is fading, but it hasn't stopped. Not yet. You've been wondering why everything tastes like ashes now. Why the places that once brought you peace now make your skin crawl. Why the people who used to understand you suddenly speak a foreign language. Why your own bed feels like a prison and your own prayers echo back empty. Let me tell you what's happening, chosen one. This isn't depression. This isn't spiritual dryness. This isn't some cosmic punishment for sins you can't even remember. This is the friction of a soul trying to fly in a space too small. You've outgrown the wilderness, and the wilderness is fighting to keep you. Think about it. When did the restlessness begin? When did your old comforts start feeling like poison? When did the conversations that used to fill you start draining you instead? It wasn't gradual, was it? It was sudden. Like someone flipped a switch in your spirit, and suddenly, nothing felt right anymore. That's because something shifted in the heavenly realm. The cloud moved, and you, faithful follower that you are, you're still sitting where the cloud used to be, wondering why the presence feels distant. But the presence isn't distant, you're just in the wrong location. God never intended for you to build a permanent address in the place of your pruning. The wilderness was a classroom, not a home. The desert was a training ground, not a destination. But somewhere along the way, you got comfortable with the struggle. You made friends with the pain. You built altars where you should have pitched tents. And now your spirit is screaming at you to move. Listen to me carefully. When God calls you out of a season, everything about that season becomes toxic. The people who fit your old assignment suddenly feel like strangers. The activities that once brought joy now feel like obligations. The mindsets that once served you now suffocate you. This isn't rejection. This is redirection. You've been asking God, why doesn't anything feel like home anymore? Because nowhere is your home anymore. You're a nomad now, chosen one. You're being called into the uncomfortable, the unfamiliar, the uncharted territories where only the brave dare to walk. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Your restlessness is not a curse, it's a compass. That discomfort you feel, that's your spirit recognizing its own growth. You've become too big for the box they tried to keep you in. Too wise for the simple answers they used to satisfy you with. Too anointed for the shallow waters you used to swim in. The old you could tolerate compromise. The new you makes compromise nauseous. The old you could smile through toxic relationships. The new you sees right through the masks. The old you could find God in religious routines. The new you needs fire, needs realness, needs encounter. This isn't backsliding, this is breakthrough. You see, when a snake is ready to shed its skin, it becomes irritable. It rubs against rough surfaces, seeking friction, seeking something to help tear away what no longer fits. The snake doesn't know it's growing. It just knows the old skin feels suffocating. That's you right now, rubbing against the rough edges of your old life, feeling irritated, feeling trapped, not understanding that this discomfort is actually the sign of your expansion. But there's something else happening that's even more profound. Your sensitivity has increased. Things that never bothered you before now feel unbearable. Conversations that used to seem normal now feel shallow. Environments that used to feel neutral now feel charged with darkness or light. This isn't oversensitivity. This is spiritual maturity. You've developed what I call the divine allergic reaction. Your spirit now rejects what doesn't align with your assignment. Your soul now has an immune system that fights off anything that tries to contaminate your calling. And yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's isolating. Yes, it makes you question your own sanity sometimes. Because nobody around you seems to feel what you feel. Nobody else seems bothered by what bothers you. Nobody else seems to sense what you sense. That's because they're still in the wilderness. And you're being called to the promised land. But here's the trap, chosen one. The enemy will use this transition to convince you that you're the problem. He'll whisper that you're too sensitive, too spiritual, too intense. He'll point to your isolation and call it evidence of your failure. He'll use your restlessness against you, making you think you're running from God when you're actually running toward Him. Don't fall for it. When Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, there were moments when they wanted to go back. The freedom felt scarier than the slavery. The unknown felt more threatening than the familiar oppression. And some of them did go back. Some of them chose the comfort of captivity over the uncertainty of calling. But not you. You're not going back. You can't go back. Because once you've tasted the real thing, the counterfeit loses all its appeal. Once you've experienced authentic presence, religious performance feels like death. Once you've walked in genuine authority, playing small feels like spiritual suicide. The wilderness served its purpose. It stripped you of everything that wasn't essential. It burned away the excess. It taught you to survive on manna alone, to find water in the rock, to follow a cloud you couldn't control and a fire you couldn't explain. But survival was never the end goal. Survival was preparation for dominion. You didn't learn to fight lions in the wilderness so you could stay in the wilderness. You learned to fight lions so you could protect sheep. You didn't develop spiritual muscles in the desert so you could flex them in empty spaces. You developed them so you could move mountains in populated places. The restlessness you feel is the stirring of destiny. The discomfort you carry is the labor pains of purpose being born. The irritation with your current circumstances is your spirit recognizing that you've outgrown them. And outgrowing doesn't mean graduating quietly. Outgrowing means breaking out, sometimes violently, sometimes dramatically, sometimes in ways that shock even you. Because when a butterfly is ready to emerge from its cocoon, it doesn't politely knock. It tears its way out. This isn't burnout, chosen one. This is the friction of a soul trying to fly in a space too small. And the only prescription for that kind of restlessness is obedience to the call to move. The cloud has shifted, and you, faithful one, it's time to follow. They thought waiting would weaken you. It only sharpened your discernment. Chosen one, you've been standing in front of this door longer than you realize. Not days, not weeks, years, circling it like Joshua around Jericho, thinking that time would somehow make you ready. But here's the truth that cuts through every excuse. The door was never waiting for your readiness. It was waiting for your recognition. This isn't a door made of wood and hinges. This is a portal carved from divine timing, and it only opens once, today, right now, in this very moment where your breath catches and your spirit knows without question that everything has led to this. You feel it, don't you? That electric tension in the air around you. That's not anxiety. That's anticipation. Heaven is holding its breath because you're finally close enough to touch what you've been praying for without even knowing how to name it. But listen carefully. This door doesn't respond to inspiration. It doesn't budge for good intentions. It doesn't crack open for spiritual dreams or holy wishes. This door responds to one thing only: movement. Raw, unfiltered, heart-pounding obedience that says, Yes, before the mind can manufacture reasons to say number, you've been prepared in ways you never understood. Every rejection that stung like fire, it burned away your need for human approval. Every betrayal that left you gasping, it taught you to breathe underwater. Every moment you felt invisible, it was heaven's way of making you untouchable. You weren't being overlooked. You were being equipped for a mission that required someone who couldn't be bought, borrowed, or broken by the opinions of this world. The enemy thought isolation would destroy you. Instead, it made you dangerous. Because when a chosen one learns to hear God's voice above the noise of the crowd, they become unstoppable. And now you stand before this door with hands that have been cleansed by suffering, a heart that's been purified by pain, and a spirit that's been tempered in fires that would have consumed anyone else. You're not the same person who started this journey. You're not even the same person who began listening to this message. You're evolving. Right here, right now. The door sees you, and it's responding. But here's what will make your blood run cold with holy fear. This door has an expiration date, not because God is cruel, but because divine timing is precise. The same God who set the stars in motion doesn't operate on human schedules. He operates on eternal rhythms that move with the precision of heaven's heartbeat. 24 hours. That's not a threat. That's mercy with a deadline. You've spent years asking when, God, when will it be my time? And He's been answering the same way every time. When you stop asking when and start asking how can I serve? How can I surrender? How can I say yes to what I don't fully understand? This door doesn't require you to see the whole staircase. It only requires you to take the first step. Tomorrow won't recognize you if you hesitate today. The version of you that's been waiting, hoping, planning, preparing, that person dies the moment you step through. What emerges on the other side isn't an improvement, it's a resurrection, a complete transformation that happens not gradually, but instantly, like light piercing darkness. But transformation demands decision, and decision demands now. You know what you're supposed to do. Stop pretending you don't. That voice in your spirit that's been getting louder with every word of this message, that's not emotion. That's instruction. That's heaven's GPS system activated in your soul, pointing you toward the exact coordinates of your destiny. The door is marked with today's date, not tomorrow's hope, not next week's convenience, today's faith. This door responds to yes, not almost, not soon, now. And when you finally step forward, when you finally stop negotiating with destiny and start obeying it, something will shift in the spiritual atmosphere that makes angels take notice and demons take flight. Your yes will echo through realms you can't see, activating forces you didn't know were waiting for your permission to move. The door isn't just opening, it's been flung wide. The question isn't whether you're invited. You've been summoned. The question is this: will you step through while heaven is watching? Or will you let fear convince you that tomorrow is safer than today? Because chosen one, let me tell you something that will either terrify you or set you free. Tomorrow, this door won't be here. The courtroom of heaven has gone quiet. Not the kind of quiet that brings peace. Not the stillness that comforts your soul after a long day of prayer. This is the silence that falls when a verdict has been reached. When mercy has extended its hand one final time. When grace has whispered its last invitation. You feel it, don't you? That heaviness in the atmosphere around your life. That shift in the spiritual climate that makes your chest tight and your spirit restless. It's not anxiety, it's accountability. Heaven is waiting for your answer. You've been told what to do. The confirmations came through dreams that woke you at 3 a.m. with tears streaming down your face. They came through strangers who spoke words they couldn't possibly have known you needed to hear. They came through doors that opened when you weren't even knocking, through provisions that showed up when your bank account was screaming empty. God has been anything but subtle. Yet here you stand, still calculating the cost, still measuring the risk, still asking for one more sign when the sky has already been written with your name in letters of fire. The scariest sound in the universe isn't thunder from heaven, it's silence after God has spoken clearly. You think divine silence means peace. You think it means you have more time to decide. But that silence carries weight. It carries the echo of opportunity's last breath. It carries the sound of angels stepping back. It carries the weight of what could have been. The next sound you won't hear won't be guidance. It won't be another gentle nudge or loving whisper. The next sound you won't hear will be silence. And that silence will follow you into rooms you once felt God's presence. It will sit beside you in worship services where others are weeping and you feel nothing. It will echo in your prayers that bounce off the ceiling because heaven has already said what it came to say. They told you obedience was about following rules. They lied. Obedience is about dialogue. It's about staying in conversation with the divine. It's about keeping the channel open between your heart and heaven. When you delay what God has clearly spoken, you don't just postpone blessing. You risk losing the sound of His voice altogether. You've watched it happen to others, haven't you? Good people, faithful people, people who once carried fire in their eyes and authority in their words, but they hesitated one too many times. They let fear have the final vote. And now they sit in churches, going through the motions, wondering why the heavens feel like brass. They chose silence. Not intentionally, not rebelliously. They just waited too long. The silence doesn't come as punishment. It comes as protection. God won't compete with your indecision. He won't shout over your excuses. When you've been given clear instruction and you choose delay, heaven protects itself from becoming background noise in your life. The Most High will not be relegated to one voice among many in the committee of your confusion. So He goes quiet, not because He stopped loving you, not because He withdrew His grace, but because His word is too holy to be ignored indefinitely. His voice is too sacred to be treated casually. You feel it beginning, don't you? That fading of the fire, that dimming of the dreams, that distance where intimacy used to live. You try to pray with the same passion, but the words feel hollow. You try to worship with the same abandon, but your hands feel heavy. This is your moment to choose. Not tomorrow when the circumstances align perfectly. Not next week when your courage finally catches up to your calling. Not next month when you feel more prepared, more worthy, more confident. Right now, in this moment, while heaven's court is still in session, while mercy's hand is still extended, while the door marked destiny still has light underneath it, the silence is creeping closer. You can feel it approaching like a storm front, heavy and inevitable, but you're not powerless against it. You have something more potent than any spiritual weapon ever forged. You have your yes. Your obedience doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be now. God isn't looking for flawless execution. He's looking for willing surrender. He doesn't need you to have all the answers. He needs you to trust the one who does. He doesn't require you to see the whole staircase. He just needs you to take the next step. The longer you wait, the heavier the silence becomes. The longer you hesitate, the more distance grows between your spirit and the sound of heaven. The longer you delay, the harder it becomes to distinguish between your voice and His. But while you can still hear it, while His whisper can still cut through the noise of your fear, while your heart can still recognize the sound of your shepherd, you have the power to break the silence before it breaks you. Speak your yes into the atmosphere, not as a shout, but as a surrender, not as a declaration of your strength, but as an admission of your dependence. Let your obedience be the sound that keeps heaven's dialogue alive in your life. Because the alternative isn't just silence. It's the sound of doors closing, the sound of opportunities walking away, the sound of your own voice echoing in rooms where God's presence used to live. The next sound you hear will determine everything. Will it be your yes, breaking through the barriers of fear and delay? Will it be your surrender, keeping the conversation between you and the divine alive and flowing? Or will it be silence? Silence that follows you? Silence that haunts you? Silence that reminds you of what you almost chose but didn't? The courtroom is still open, but not for long. They thought the generational curse would outlast you. They were wrong. Listen to me, chosen one. What you've been carrying all these years, the unexplained heaviness, the patterns that kept repeating in your family, the spiritual warfare that felt too intense for one person. None of it was random. None of it was personal. It was positional. You were born into a bloodline under siege, but you weren't born to surrender to it. You were born to end it. Every night you've laid awake, wondering why your battles felt deeper than everyone else's. Every moment you've questioned why your pain seemed to have roots you couldn't trace. Every time you felt like you were fighting wars that started before you even took your first breath. That wasn't your imagination. That was your calling announcing itself. You are the bloodline breaker. The weight was never yours to carry. It was yours to crush. For generations, your family line has been marked by poverty mindsets that whispered there's never enough, marked by depression that passed from mother to daughter like a cruel inheritance, marked by addictions that claimed fathers and sons with mathematical precision, marked by broken marriages, early deaths, and dreams that died in the womb of fear. But something happened when you were born. Something shifted in the spiritual atmosphere. Hell looked at your arrival and saw what heaven had planned: a terminator. Not just a survivor, but an ender. A bloodline breaker who would refuse to pass the poison down. You felt it as a child, didn't you? That sense that you were different, that the old excuses didn't satisfy your spirit, that the family patterns felt like chains you couldn't accept, while others shrugged and said, that's just how we are. Something in you whispered, not anymore. They called you rebellious. They said you thought you were better than your raising. But what they couldn't see was that heaven had marked you as the one who would finally say enough. The weight you've carried wasn't punishment for being born into dysfunction. It was preparation for dismantling it. Your delay is someone else's death sentence. But chosen one, time is running out. Not just for you, but for the generations watching your every move. Your children, your grandchildren, the little ones who aren't even born yet, but whose freedom depends on what you do right now. What you delay, they will have to fight. What you postpone, they will inherit. What you refuse to break, they will be born carrying. That grandson who isn't even walking yet, if you don't break the cycle of fear that has paralyzed your family for 60 years, he will grow up with the same invisible weight on his shoulders that you've carried. That daughter who's watching how you handle pressure, she's learning whether women in your family rise or retreat. The enemy is banking on your hesitation. He's counting on you to say, I'm too old, I'm too tired, let someone else deal with this. Because he knows if he can keep you frozen just a little longer, he can pass the baton of bondage to the next generation. But what you break, they'll never touch. When you finally stand up and declare, this stops with me, you don't just free yourself. You liberate bloodlines. You shatter invisible ceilings. You tear down altars of limitation that have been feeding off your family for decades. The chain reaction of your courage. Picture this. Your great-grandmother couldn't read, convinced education wasn't for people like her. Your grandmother cleaned other people's houses, whispering that success was for other families. Your mother worked 2 jobs but never believed she deserved rest, comfort, or dreams. But you carry their unfinished prayers. You hold their suppressed potential. You are the answer to cries they whispered in the dark when they thought no one was listening. When you rise, you don't just break your ceiling, you demolish theirs retroactively. When you succeed, you validate every prayer they prayed through tears. When you prosper, you prove that their sacrifice wasn't in vain. Your courage creates a domino effect that travels both ways through time, forward to your children and backward to your ancestors who never got to see their dreams fulfilled. This is why your obedience feels so heavy, because it's not just your breakthrough riding on your decision. It's the liberation of everyone connected to your bloodline. Heaven is holding its breath. Right now, in the courts of heaven, there's a case being heard. Your family's case. The evidence of generations of limitation is stacked high. The patterns, the cycles, the repeated defeats. It all forms a legal case for why your bloodline should remain bound. But you are the key witness for the defense. Your life, your choices, your courage, they are the evidence that things can change, that cycles can be broken, that what was written in the past doesn't have to be the story of the future. And heaven is waiting on your testimony. Not your words, but your actions, your movement, your yes to the impossible. The angels assigned to your family have been patient. They've watched generation after generation come close to breakthrough, only to retreat at the last moment. They've seen the same opportunities offered, the same doors opened, the same divine invitations extended, only to be declined by people who couldn't see past their circumstances. But you're different. You've come further than any of them. You've endured more, learned more, grown more. You've been refined by fires they never had to walk through, strengthened by battles they never had to fight. You are the one they've been waiting for. What you break, they'll never touch. So let me ask you something, bloodline breaker. How long will you make heaven wait? How long will you let the chains of the past define the possibilities of the future? Your great-great-granddaughter deserves to be born into a family where success feels normal, where peace isn't a luxury but an inheritance, where dreams aren't crushed but cultivated. But that only happens if you move, if you rise, if you refuse to carry what previous generations accepted as just the way things are. The enemy is terrified of what you represent, because he knows that one transformed bloodline can shift entire communities. One family walking in freedom can inspire hundreds of others to break their own chains. You are not just one person. You are a generational earthquake waiting to happen. What you delay, your children will have to fight. But what you break, they'll never touch. The choice is yours, bloodline breaker. But the clock is ticking, and tomorrow might be too late. They thought fear would break you. It backfired. Chosen one, you've noticed something strange these past few weeks, haven't you? Old temptations crawling back like ghosts from a graveyard you thought was sealed. Sudden exhaustion hitting you right when you start to pray. Phone calls that interrupt your quiet time. Arguments erupting from nowhere. Bills arriving early. Sleep fleeing when you need it most. You wondered if you were losing your mind. If God had somehow stepped back. If the peace you'd been building was just an illusion, cracking under pressure. Let me tell you what's really happening. The enemy sees the gate opening, and he's terrified. Hell doesn't panic over small threats. It mobilizes against massive ones. For decades, chosen one, you've been walking toward a spiritual gate that hell hoped you'd never find. They built distractions around it, erected walls of discouragement, posted guards of fear and doubt. They whispered lies about your worth, your calling, your destiny. They convinced others to overlook you, to pass you by, to treat you like background noise. But you kept walking, step by step, prayer by prayer, tear by tear. And now that gate, that divine portal between where you've been and where God is calling you, it's starting to crack open. Light is bleeding through. Angels are positioning themselves. Heaven is preparing for your breakthrough. And the enemy? The enemy is in full-scale panic mode. You know why he's fighting so hard? Because he can see what's on the other side of that gate. He sees your family line healed for generations. He sees cycles broken that have tormented your bloodline for over a century. He sees your voice carrying authority that will set captives free. He sees doors opening that will give you access to rooms where his lies have been spoken as truth. He sees his defeat written in your obedience. So he's throwing everything he has at you, every weapon in his arsenal, every trick he's learned from watching you all these years. He's studying your patterns, your weaknesses, your triggers. He knows exactly when you pray, when you're vulnerable, when you're strongest. And he's timing his attacks with surgical precision. The devil can't close the gate, but he'll use fear to freeze your feet. That sudden doubt that hit you yesterday? Timed. That phone call that pulled you away from prayer? Calculated. That financial pressure that arrived just as you were gaining spiritual momentum? Strategic warfare. He's not fighting to destroy you anymore. Chosen one. He knows he can't. You've proven that. You've survived his worst storms. You've walked through fires that consumed others. You've stood when earthquakes shook everyone else to their knees. No, he's not fighting to destroy you. He's fighting to delay you, because he knows something you're just beginning to understand. Your timing is everything. There's a divine window opening, and if you step through it at the appointed hour, chains will snap that have held your family captive for generations. But if he can slow you down by just one day, just one decision, just one moment of hesitation, he's gambling that confusion will cost you your momentum. Listen carefully. The enemy's playbook hasn't changed in thousands of years. When God's people approach their breakthrough, hell unleashes the same tired tactics. Fear of the unknown, doubt about worthiness, sudden urgent distractions that feel more important than obedience. He'll resurrect dead issues, bring back people from your past who carry familiar spirits. He'll make your body tired when your spirit is most ready to soar. He'll fog your mind when clarity is most crucial. But here's what he didn't count on. You've been training for this battle your entire life. Every attack you've survived was preparation for this moment. Every betrayal taught you discernment. Every disappointment taught you dependence on God alone. Every closed door taught you to wait for divine timing. Every sleepless night taught you to find rest in his presence. You're not the same person who started this journey. Chosen one. The enemy is fighting with old intelligence against a new creation. He's using yesterday's weapons against today's warrior. And that's why his attacks feel so desperate, so scattered, so transparent. You can see through them now, can't you? That sudden anger that tried to take you out during worship, you recognized it wasn't yours. That fear that whispered you weren't ready, you knew it was a lie. That exhaustion that hit you right when you were about to make a breakthrough decision, you pushed through anyway. Hell's strategies are becoming visible to you because you're operating from a higher altitude. The closer you get to that gate, the clearer your spiritual vision becomes. What once confused you now reveals itself as warfare. What once discouraged you now confirms you're on the right path. What once made you question your calling now validates it. Because when hell fights this hard to keep you back, it's because moving forward will cost them territory they've held for decades. You're not just walking toward your breakthrough. You're carrying someone else's deliverance. That's why the pressure feels so intense. Your obedience doesn't just affect you. There are people connected to your courage who don't even know your name yet. Children in your bloodline who will walk in freedom because you refuse to stop at the gate. The enemy sees all of this. He sees the ripple effect of your yes. He sees the generational shift that happens when one person finally says, I don't care what it costs. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care who understands. I'm walking through that gate. And it terrifies him. So let him panic. Let him rage. Let him throw everything he has at you. Because every attack now is proof that you're closer than you've ever been. Every desperate move he makes confirms that your breakthrough is imminent. Every lie he whispers validates the truth you're standing on. The gate is opening, chosen one. The light is breaking through. Heaven is watching. Angels are ready. And the enemy? The enemy is out of time. Just like you said you were yesterday. But you're still here, still standing, still moving forward. That should tell you everything you need to know about who wins this war. You've been living in the guest room of mercy. But chosen one, grace was never meant to be your permanent address. You've confused God's patience with permission. You've mistaken his silence for approval of your delay. You've turned the gift of time into a prison of procrastination. Let me tell you what grace really is. Grace is not a rocking chair where you sit and wait for courage to find you. Grace is not a spa where you soak in comfort while your calling grows cold. Grace is not a retirement home for those too tired to fight. Grace is a sword, sharp, holy, blazing with divine fire. And it's been extended to you not so you could rest indefinitely, but so you could rise indefinitely. Every breath you've taken in this season of waiting has been grace, cutting the chains that once bound you. Every morning you woke up when depression whispered, "Stay down," that was grace, slicing through despair. Every time you chose forgiveness over bitterness, faith over fear, hope over hopelessness, grace was doing surgery on your soul. But surgery has a purpose: healing, restoration, and ultimately, movement. You weren't preserved to pause. You were preserved to break through. Listen carefully. The oil is running low in the lamp of divine patience. Not because God is angry, but because the time for preparation is ending and the time for activation has begun. You feel it, don't you? That restlessness in your spirit. That holy discomfort that makes your old hiding places feel suddenly too small. That's not anxiety, that's awakening. For too long, you've treated grace like a safety net, catching you every time you fell back into old patterns. But grace was never designed to keep you falling. It was designed to teach you how to fly. And now, chosen one, the training wheels are coming off. You've been asking God for more time, more clarity, more confirmation, more courage. But what if I told you that your request for more has become a resistance to now? What if your prayer for preparation has become a postponement of purpose? God didn't spare you from that accident so you could live afraid of taking risks. He didn't heal you from that disease so you could hide from your destiny. He didn't deliver you from that toxic relationship so you could remain single and silent. He didn't break those generational curses so you could live like they're still in effect. You were preserved for war, not the kind of war that destroys, but the kind that liberates. The kind that breaks chains off other people's lives. The kind that shifts atmospheres and awakens the sleeping. You've been trained in the valley of grace, and now you're being deployed to the mountaintop of purpose. But here's what you need to understand. Grace that doesn't produce growth becomes guilt. Mercy that doesn't lead to movement becomes mockery. Time that doesn't birth transformation becomes torment. You feel it already, don't you? The weight of unused gifts, the burden of buried talents, the ache of assignments unfulfilled. That's not condemnation. That's consecration calling you forward. The enemy convinced you that grace meant you had forever to figure it out. But grace has a rhythm, a season, a divine timing. And that timing is reaching its crescendo in your life right now. The curtain is rising. The spotlight is warming up. The audience of heaven is taking their seats. And you're still in the dressing room asking for 5 more minutes. Chosen one, 5 more minutes expired 5 seasons ago. The grace that covered your past is now demanding action in your present. It's not patient anymore, it's passionate. It's not waiting anymore, it's working. It's not whispering anymore, it's roaring. Move. You weren't given this calling to think about it. You were given it to walk in it. You weren't given these gifts to analyze them. You were given them to activate them. You weren't given this anointing to admire it. You were given it to apply it. The world doesn't need another person who almost obeyed. It needs someone who finally did. The kingdom doesn't need another dreamer. It needs a doer. Your family doesn't need another prayer warrior who talks about breakthrough. They need someone who becomes the breakthrough. Grace is running like oil from a cracked jar because what's left is meant to anoint your feet for the journey ahead, not keep you comfortable where you are. You've been steeping in mercy long enough. You've been soaking in compassion long enough. You've been resting in forgiveness long enough. Now it's time to rise. Not tomorrow, not next week. Not when you feel more qualified or more confident or more certain about the outcome. Now, because grace without obedience is not grace at all. It's rebellion in religious clothing. It's spiritual procrastination dressed up as humility. It's fear masquerading as wisdom. And you, chosen one, are done masquerading. The oil is almost gone, but what remains is enough. Enough to light the lamp of your calling. Enough to ignite the fire of your purpose. Enough to burn away every excuse that kept you small. You weren't preserved to pause. You were preserved to break through. And the breakthrough starts the moment you stop asking for permission and start walking in power. The grace period is ending. The grace purpose has begun. They thought time would make you settle. It made you sharper. Chosen one. You've been standing at the edge of eternity for what feels like forever. The same promises, the same whispers, the same divine pull in your chest that won't let you rest. But tonight is different. Tonight, the hourglass isn't just running low, it's almost empty. And what's waiting on the other side of your obedience isn't just another blessing, it's a crown. Not the kind made of gold and jewels, the kind forged in fire, the kind that can only be placed on a head that's been bowed in surrender for decades. The kind that heaven reserves for those who didn't quit when quitting made sense. You feel it, don't you? That weight pressing down on your shoulders. That's not burden, that's preparation. Heaven has been fitting you for a crown you didn't even know existed. Every tear was a measurement. Every prayer was a sizing. Every moment you thought you were breaking, you were actually being shaped for something royal. But here's what hell doesn't want you to understand. The crown awaits, but so does the clock. You didn't survive by accident. You survived by appointment. Look back at your story, really look. Those moments when you should have fallen but didn't. Those nights when you should have given up but couldn't. Those attacks that should have destroyed you but somehow made you stronger. That wasn't luck. That was heaven's protection over a future king, over a future queen. You've been walking through a 60-year coronation ceremony, and you didn't even know it. Every rejection was heaven saying, "Not yet, they're not ready for your reign." Every delay was the crown being polished. Every season of silence was your royal chamber being prepared. You weren't being punished. You were being positioned for a throne that lesser souls couldn't handle. But thrones don't wait forever. Crowns don't pause for convenience. Divine timing doesn't consult your calendar. The inheritance behind this door, this final door, isn't just personal breakthrough. It's generational shift. It's bloodline redemption. It's the moment when everything your ancestors prayed for but never saw comes flooding through your obedience. Your yes doesn't just change you. It changes your lineage. Your children, your children's children, people who will never know your name but will walk in freedom because you said yes when it mattered most. One step today is louder in heaven than 1,000 perfect plans tomorrow. You know what heaven hears when you finally move? Thunder. The sound of chains breaking across generations. The sound of curses snapping like twigs. The sound of hell's carefully constructed plans crumbling into dust. But you know what heaven hears when you hesitate? Silence. Not the peaceful kind, the dangerous kind, the kind that gives darkness permission to advance. The clock isn't your enemy, it's your invitation. It's heaven saying, the stage is set, the audience is watching, the crown is ready. All we're waiting for is the king. All we're waiting for is the queen. They told you that you weren't ready. Heaven disagrees. Perfect people don't need crowns, they need mirrors. Broken people who kept believing, kept walking, kept trusting when trust hurt, Those are the ones heaven crowns, not because they never fell, but because they never stayed down. Your scars aren't disqualifications, they're your credentials. Your tears aren't evidence of weakness. They're the water that watered the seeds of your authority. Your pain wasn't punishment. It was the pressure that created the diamond of your character. Heaven doesn't crown the qualified. It qualifies the crowned. And you, chosen one, have been wearing an invisible crown for decades. Tonight, it becomes visible, but only if you move. The trumpet will not blow again. This isn't a practice round. This isn't a dress rehearsal. This is the moment every prophet wrote about, every prayer prepared for, every promise pointed toward. The moment when time stops waiting and starts demanding. You've asked for signs. This is it. You've prayed for open doors. This is it. You've cried out for confirmation. This is it. The crown won't shrink to fit your comfort zone. You must expand to receive it. The throne won't lower itself to your level. You must rise to claim it. The kingdom won't adjust to your timeline. You must align with heaven's. Your past can't recognize who you're becoming. The version of you that enters this next season will be so transformed, so anointed, so aligned with divine purpose that your former self wouldn't know you. The same face, but different eyes. The same voice, but different authority. The same heart, but different fire. Beloved, as we reach the end of this sacred hour together, let me remind you of the truths that must never leave your heart. You are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. You are not too late. Every attack you've survived, every tear you've shed in the darkness, every moment you felt invisible and known of it was wasted. Heaven has been watching, recording, preparing your crown while you walk through your valleys. The clock is ticking, yes, but it's not ticking against you. It's ticking for you. This divine urgency isn't punishment, it's invitation. God's timing isn't cruel, it's perfect. And the door that stands before you isn't closing to shut you out, it's opening to let you in. Remember this: one step today carries more weight in heaven than 1,000 perfect plans tomorrow. Your obedience doesn't need to be flawless, it just needs to be real. You are not walking this path alone. Even now, as you sit in your living room, your kitchen, wherever this message has found you, know that there are thousands of others just like you, watching these same words, feeling this same stirring in their chest. We are a family. We are a community of the chosen, the called, the ones who refused to quit when quitting made sense. And more than that, God Himself walks beside you. He who began this good work in you will be faithful to complete it. The same hands that shape the stars are shaping your tomorrow. The same voice that spoke light into darkness is speaking purpose into your uncertainty. But let me ask you this, friend. What will you do with the time you have left? Will you let fear write the final chapter of your story? Or will you pick up the pen of faith and write the ending heaven has been waiting to see? Bow your heads with me. Let me pray over you, not as a stranger, but as family. Father God, I place my hands on the shoulders of every precious soul listening to these words tonight. Lord, they are tired. They are weary. Some have been fighting battles so long they've forgotten what peace feels like. But you see them. You know their names. You count their tears. God, I ask you right now, break every chain of delay that has wrapped around their hearts. Shatter every lie that told them they were too old, too broken, too late. Remove every obstacle that stands between them and their divine destiny. Fill them with holy boldness, Lord. Give them courage to take that first step, even if their knees are shaking. Let them feel your presence so powerfully tonight that doubt becomes impossible. Let them hear your voice so clearly that fear becomes silent. Bless their families, Father. Heal their bodies. Restore their finances. Open doors that no man can shut. Send angels before them to prepare the way. Let favor follow them like a shadow. And Lord, when the enemy whispers that this moment will pass, that this fire will fade, remind them of this night. Remind them of the stirring they felt. Remind them that you have called them by name, and your calling is irrevocable. We thank you, God, that their best days are not behind them, they are ahead. We thank you that their story is not endingits, just beginning. We thank you that you are faithful, even when we are faithless. In the mighty name of Jesus, we declare, their time is now, their season has come, their crown awaits. Let peace that surpasses understanding guard their hearts tonight. Let hope rise in their spirits. Let joy flood their souls. It is done. It is finished. It is sealed. Amen. Now, I want to hear from you. Don't just close this video and walk away. This is your moment to respond. In the comments below, type, "My time is now." If you're ready to step through that door, type, "I hear you." Lord, if this message spoke directly to your heart, share your story, your struggles, your victories, your prayers. There are others who need to hear that they're not alone. And please, don't keep this message to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to remember they are chosen. Share it with the widow who thinks her purpose died with her husband. Share it with the father who feels like he failed his children. Share it with anyone who has forgotten that God still has plans for their life. Hit that subscribe button right now, not for me, but for yourself. Stay connected to this community of warriors. Let this be the channel that reminds you weekly of who you are when the world tries to tell you who you're not. Thank you for trusting me with this sacred hour of your life. Thank you for staying until the end when others clicked away. Thank you for letting God speak through these words into the deepest places of your heart. The crown is waiting, beloved. The door is open. Your time is now. Walk through it. Heaven is cheering you on.